Okay, hello? Hello? Well, hello and welcome. Thank you so much to everyone for coming to this event on 3D printing. I'm Stephanie. I am the leader of the user group of the SOLIDWORKS user group of New York. And here we're at Makelab in Brooklyn to talk about 3D printing and 3D experience for 3D printing. So the SOLIDWORKS user group of New York, as all of the user groups of SOLIDWORKS, are created by users for users, and we're here to empower the community through networking and learning events such as these. So today we have a very cool program for you guys. We're going to be talking, we're going to have two presenters tonight, two presentations tonight. We have Christina Perla, Makelab's co-founder and CEO, to talk about 3D printing and 3D printing techniques and case studies. And we have our favorite content creators and SOLIDWORKS fantastic couple duo to talk about 3D experience and capture 3D printing. So after their presentations, we're gonna have a Q&A session to talk about just like cover any questions that the presentations might have. We'll have a little bit of prizes and activities to raffle some of the swag that we have. And for our online community, we're going to have one prize as well. So stay tuned and for that, and we're kicking off. So I'll show the presentation for and open the stage for Christina to cover her spot.
Oh yeah, I could clip this.
Clip it, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Christina. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Makelab. My co-founder and husband is in the back next to the guy with the hat named Arthur. Welcome, thank you for coming tonight. We're happy to have y'all. So I thought I'd just spend some time to introduce Makelab to you and tell you a little bit about the kind of things that we do. So I like to start off with my background because it's pretty, let me know if I'm ever blocking, because it's pretty relevant to what we do. So I started out as an industrial designer. I went to Pratt, which is like a mile down the road. That's where Manny and I met. So, you know, my undergrad, there was a 3D printing lab. There was one 3D printer. It was about 6 feet tall. The build volume was like this big. So it was like, what, like 8 inches cubed? Oh. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it was about 8-inch cube. It shook. So personally, my favorite machine was like the laser cutter, which is very ironic, being that we have a farm of like 36 today. So back in the day, before like 3D printing, we would do a lot of prototyping. It's part of the design process. You know, you gotta understand the look and feel and how people would interact with your product before it goes to market or before you go to your final. And so we used to carve a lot of things out of blue foam. A lot of what's up there in the top left is actually blue foam. You buy it at Home Depot. You glue it together with wood glue. You throw it on the lathe. You throw it on the bandsaw. It's now like illegal in the schools because it's very carcinogenic. And yeah, lucky me, I got to inhale all of it. Yeah. Oh, it's not?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Bye. Okay. All right, I'll just click. All right, yeah. So after school, I worked at Converse for a little bit. I was designing like accessories. It was a 2-person team.
I started out as an intern, made my way to like a full-time position. But I kind of had this itch and I was like, I feel like design is supposed to be more. So I ended up working for Interwoven Design Group, which is a wearable tech like design firm run by an old professor of mine named Rebecca Pales Friedman. But even then, like I just still had this like energy. I was like, I need to do something more. Like I got bored after 6 months. I get bored very easily. It was nothing against Interwoven, but I just felt like I needed to do something else. So I left, I gave him my 2 weeks notice and I started to take on different freelance projects. I went on, I put a profile on Upwork and some other freelance sites. And I just basically started taking jobs, whatever came our way for portfolio and, you know, the money. And at some point, Manny did have a full-time job, but he had some flexibility in his schedule. So we decided to join forces, call ourselves Tangent Design, and like be on our way to start building a design firm. 1 year into that, we were 3D printing a lot for clients. We were not using blue foam anymore. We were not using plaster anymore. We were using modern tools, which was great, like 3D printing. But a year into it, the vendor that we would send all of our 3D prints to, they were moving to China and they asked us to take over the business, basically acquire the machines, the customer list, and the website. And it was like a really small company. We really liked the mission of the company. We really liked the experience. So we said, hell yeah. And then it was called 3D Uniprint. 3 months later, we rebranded to Makelab, and that's pretty much what started our journey. And so it's been 6 years now. We started in 2017. We tripled our revenue about a year and a half in, and we did it. It happened so fast, and we tried, yes, but it came very easily. So it was at that point when we 3X that we were like, okay, I think we're filling a need that, you know, Shapeways, hubs, or 3D hubs at the time, Xometry, Perla Labs, maybe they're not filling. We're hitting some traction with this customer group of other industrial designers. And we also found that building a design firm was really, really hard. And we really enjoyed the whole, you know, just building a business with complex operations where there's a lot of variables. So we decided to go full-time on Makelab. The pandemic hit, but we survived. We grew a little, which was great. And that's really what brought us here today. So today we focus on 3D printing parts for consumer brands and hardware brands. So anything from robotics to maybe farm robotics. We're quoting for a job there. We've done some fun marketing projects as well. We've done things for like the home goods industries, the packaging industries. And so yeah, we do a lot of different stuff. And we do one-offs as well as small batch production runs. So we've done quantities in the thousands before on those machines, which is crazy. So I'm going to walk through 3 different groups. And so this first one is I'm kind of in the way, the home goods prototypes. And so we've worked with Williams-Sonoma, West Elm. We've worked with Full Circle Home or Full Circle Brands or Home. They kind of go by both. We have not worked with OXO. That is on my wish list, but they have their own farm. But what we found is like, you know, these companies, it's very fast paced, but they want to nail down the right design, the right shape, the right size, the right everything. So they tend to prototype a lot. So we end up doing things like 4 different versions of an ice cream scoop, or 6 different versions of a handle, or I think that's 6 different variations of a wine glass. And so we found a little bit of traction there. And what we found is like us being able to reliably turn around like quality parts and materials they choose pretty quickly enables them to design faster, so that they can, you know, kind of parallel projects. They can work on the glasses and something else all at and the plates all at the same time, because we're taking care of a lot of the heavy lifting with the prototyping. Another example is packaging. And so this one honestly took us for a surprise, but it's something that's pretty recurring. So have you guys ever familiar with like paper pulp packaging-ish? So there's a company, there's quite a few companies that are constantly prototyping and selling their solutions to clients. And so part of that sale is that they print with us and we ship them the prototype, sometimes in multiple quantities, so they can try it out on, in a client meeting and sell the client on the solution without committing to a mold, without committing to all these expenses. And so this is really interesting because we do higher quantities for this, but we've also noticed we print for the same company, but we've noticed the file names change. So we saw that a lot of these solutions were for Pfizer, Flonase, Whoop, the fitness tracker band with no screen, Billy, Shiseido, and it's just very cool for us to see. And again, they like us for the fast and agile. And the last bit, I think, is probably the most fun use case, but probably the most hectic. So anyone who's been in the fabrication industry, in the world of making things for holiday displays or maybe a marketing campaign or a shoot, you know that the creative producers working on that project need everything literally yesterday and will bring that energy to you. But honestly, it's kind of like the most fun projects because it's the most recognizable and you get to see your work like out in the world. And so this is an example of this Macy's window that went up last year in 2022, like during all the holiday windows, but we were printing legitimately squirrels and reindeers and Santa Claus. There's a lot more that we printed. This was a very, very large project. But what was cool was, we printed some of these in parts, and the fabrication studio called Square, they're the ones that finished it, put it together, felted it, and made it perfect for the window. And for me personally, I grew up in New Jersey, and so when I was younger, I would come to the city like every winter season, every holiday season, and my mom would kind of force me to walk a lot to just like look at the windows. So it's very full circle for me that we did this project. And yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time. We don't have that much time, so that's. Oh wait, one last thing. And so one thing we noticed when as we were building out this location of Makelab is like we have really tight operations and we have a high repeat return customer rate, and we do things well for the most. We do things on time, we do things quality, we do things fast, and people really like us. And so what we're ultimately building is a network of labs. So this is the first one. The next one, maybe Boston, maybe SF, TBD on everything, but we're finalizing the blueprint here so we can replicate this in other cities where product and hardware is happening. And that's it. If you want to connect with me, that's a QR code, I think, to my LinkedIn.
Go right into the next one, or did you?
You got your mic on?
I do.
My mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
It's pointing the wrong way.
Yeah, well.
I'm gonna stand
focus.
over here.
Okay. Can the camera see you?
No. Can the camera see me?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight, and for all of you online. I'm so glad that you joined us. Chinloo and I are here to talk to you about using CAD to turn your ideas into reality with 3D printing. So just quickly, my name is Sal. I've been with SOLIDWORKS for over 18 years, and I'm the director of product definition. That's a department inside of research and development that designs the software. I don't write any code. It would be a disaster if I did, but I work with the developers and kind of tell them what we need to build. And Chinloo.
I'm part of the user experience team. We're both mechanical engineers, but I went into computer graphics design. So I work more on the user interface and the way you go from point A to point B if you want something done. So I've been doing that for about 16 years with SOLIDWORKS, and now we are on this cool next chapter that we're going to tell you guys more about.
That just happened. Yeah, so we've recently, did we miss a slide? Anyway,
No, this is it.
okay, we recently started a journey into content creation. So
Oh, sorry. It's so complicated.
come on. We've been avid makers since we could hold a pencil. So it almost seemed natural to actually use the CAD that we design and the skills that we have in our creativity to actually make things. So we started a YouTube channel called OurNextMake, and we build all kinds of projects. And this is just an example of something that we built recently. It's actually a Shut the Box game. Has anyone ever played Shut the Box? You need to go get one. It's not going to be as cool as this one, though, because it won't have LEDs and laser etched acrylic, but it's a really fun game. You roll the dice, and eventually your goal is to shut the box with all the numbers that are lit up. But again, this is just one example of the type of stuff that we do on our channel.
We do a lot of different things. So the idea is we want to use our software to do, to eat our own or eat our own dog food, or like drink our own champagne, however you want to say it. But in doing so, we found that we could do a lot of stuff like woodworking, 3D printing. It's everywhere. But since today our conversation is more on 3D printing, we wanted to show that we do use that technique in some of the projects we've done. So you'll hear a bit about like things that we've learned. We have not obviously touched everything that you guys have. So leading to the next point, we would love to have a conversation.
So again, our projects, some of them have nothing to do with 3D printing. Some of them are all about it. And most have some element where something about it needs to be 3D printed. So we want to talk to you about that today. And our goal is, again, to share what we've learned, what we do when we think about making something that's going to be 3D printed. And we also want to learn from all of you, because I'm sure there's expertise in the room where we can share amongst ourselves about other things. So we want this to be a dialogue as we go through. If there's a comment or a question, same thing online. Please type into the chat, and Stephanie or someone else might be monitoring.
Yeah,
and
very informal, so
yes.
Interrupt us, please. One caveat I want to set is on all of these projects we've done, we've strictly been using one particular printer that we have quick access to. So we have 2 Cindos at our house, conveniently, that we can access. So we're using PLA in working with what we do. So understand that when we start telling about the learnings that we have. I'm sure there are solutions in other methods, but that's kind of what I think this conversation is about.
Yeah, so a lot of our stuff is FDM based. If you're doing SLA printing or some other powder or metal printing, that's not within our wheelhouse. So but if that's expertise you want to share with the group, we'd love to hear that too. I think a common question when you start thinking about, you have a part on the screen, you've modeled it in whatever CAD software you use, and you ask yourself, how am I going to print this? And there's, for us, criteria that we try and address. Am I trying to design this to be really strong, or do I care about the surface finish? Do I want to minimize how much material I'm using, or do I want to make it easy after it comes off the print bed to actually have a finished result? And maybe again, I just needed it really fast. So what are the things I can do to hit one or maybe all of these? Where are the trade-offs? And I think the good news that I want to point out is that 3D printed parts can be very strong. I don't know if the people online, I'll pass this around, but this is an example. I'm not going to tell you what it is. In fact, I'll ask all of you online to start putting in your comments, and as I pass this around, you can all you can start feeling it. But I will say I haven't processed the back. There's a couple sharp sort of little bits, so be careful as you handle it. But again, 3D printing can be produce really strong parts, and that's a part that has to be strong. I love this example. Maybe everyone in the room understands this, but in FDM, you're laying down a layer of material at a time. And of course, the orientation of your model will dictate its strength in many ways. If you stacked a bunch of Legos up like that, or if you built the same rough volume with Legos like that, there's going to be different strength characteristics, especially if you're thinking that in the end, they're going to be a diving board, right? If it's going to be held on one end and pushed on the other, clearly the one that's got all the layers going this way is going to break much more easily than the one where the layers are going this way. So thinking about how your part's going to be used and knowing how the layers are going to stack up can also impact the strength. Now, this is another example. We built a game. Surely people have played Ring the Hook or Hook the Ring. It's a drinking game. But it's a simple game. There's a hook, a ring on the end of a rope, and you have to try and hook it onto a oh, and there's a little mechanism that I tried to design to hold the beam up. And so I wanted to have this sort of rotating mechanism where I could ratchet it into place and that would hold the model. And then when I needed to get it out of the way, I'd turn it and it would let the arm down. I realized that I designed it way too strong. In fact, here's another sample. For those of you in the room, sorry for the folks online, this is going to be really hard to turn. But you can play with that and see just how hard it was to actually turn that. So you can certainly design things that are 3D printed that are over designed. But I went back to the drawing board and I started to sort of modify the design and exploit some of the properties. The very first one that you just saw in the video was actually where, let me back up because this is right here. So I brought all of the sort of rationing mechanism inbound instead of these big fingers on the outside. And I figured, okay, I could just have one finger that goes click, click, click. But in this case, it was too fragile. And after just a couple of twists, it broke. So I under-designed it. And again, I figured a nice long beam, it would be fine. But the material was too stiff and it caused all the force to be way down there at the joint. And it didn't have that flexing. So I went back to sort of the drawing board, if you will. And made this design where it came off at an angle, because now it's just deflecting ever so slightly. And now I've got a part that actually works. That's one that we can pass around as well. In fact, I took it one step further because only having one of them created sort of this asymmetric feel. It felt one way when you turn clockwise and a different way when you turn counterclockwise because of the compression and the tension. So I did this sort of two-finger design. And created a much more balanced feel. But again, you can create very cool functional parts with 3D printing, and again, they can absolutely be strong. So where is that weird part that I sent around? Is it still making its way around? Okay, I won't rush it. Chinloo, you got one other example here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's an example where we utilize 3D printing to actually do a very simple function, which is attach the surface of this dog food station onto the base. Traditionally, you have these little number 8 shaped clips that you can basically screw one end to the base and then one end to the underside of the table. But that's kind of an overkill for something like this. So what we designed was this little version that is 3D printed, and it actually gave us the opportunity to countersink and create that kind of like finish that we wanted. So here you can see Sal showing that you can actually flip it, and it's designed in such a way where now you can actually install it hidden into the whole part of the dog tray. So it's like that customizability that really helps. And it's strong enough with the 3D print.
Yeah, and that's, I think, an important part. There's, strong and strong enough, right? It doesn't have to support like a 200-pound dining room table, whereas the metal clips might be used for something like that. But of course, for a dog food station, just a very simple 3D printed plastic part can do the job. So that's a bit about strength. Where is that part? Did it come back? Who's got the guesses? Did the people online? Oh, Manny's got a guess. Manny, what's your guess?
What is it?
Rock climbing?
You got it.
You're supposed to lead them on.
Sorry.
No, that can't possibly be it. Did anyone online guess that?
Good guess.
So yes, Manny, you nailed it. This is a rock climbing hold. It's actually, we don't often do this on OurNextMake. I tend to try and keep everything hush hush until we air the episodes. This is something that you'll see on an episode in the future. But yeah, it's a rock climbing hold, and I tried to design it so it had a lot of variability in it. So I could do a two-handed grip like this. I could do a finger grip like this up top. And it's going to be bolted. So it's got to hold a couple 100 pounds worth of me and others who might try it out. But again, it's exciting to play with this. And this, by the way, we'll talk more about this in a minute. We use SOLIDWORKS for Makers. SOLIDWORKS for Makers is not just the SOLIDWORKS that many of you know, but it also comes with our cloud applications. So XDesign and XShape. This model was made with XShape, which is a subdivisional modeler. You can push and pull the geometry. So it's really easy to create complex shapes like this with the software that comes with SOLIDWORKS.
We'll show you some more examples of that too. You want to do the surface finish first?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's you.
So I thought this is a video. Is this not a video? Sorry. So in this example, we made this monster keepsake box for one of our nieces. And what we were noticing was that, depending on how we set the piece, and actually, can you pause going back?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see here.
What
What we're trying to do is, if you can see the finish on the teeth on this monster, there's a slight curve to it. And because of the way we printed, you could actually see the striation. So it's really critical. For us, it wasn't that big of a deal because this is a little toy chest and the finish isn't a huge issue, but for that consideration of what you think about when you're designing your 3D print and which way to orient it, you have to understand that the more shallow that curve is, each layer is going to move back more, and you're going to have that stepping effect. So in this case, we actually very quickly threw together, we had wood filler available, and we actually sanded it and applied it. But I'm sure there are plenty of other solutions. We've tried acetone in the past, all those different ways. But to us, finish was important in certain designs, but in this particular case, I think we just made a compromise and made it work.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I want to ask the group in a moment, but here we experimented. So normally we would do spray filler and then sand it down, spray filler, sand it down. And we figured that let's try wood filler. Like, let's see what happens.
We had it on
And
hand.
I will say it kind of works, but it's still an experiment in my mind, and I'm still concerned about its longevity and how brittle it'll be. It'll dry out. So odds are it's not a good thing for a child's toy gift center.
Yeah, I mean, we did apply, what you're seeing here is acrylic paint over it. So there's some layer of protection, and then we've used Mod Podge afterwards. So there are different ways to just kind of capture it, but Sal has a point. People use Bondo, and there are things that are meant to just seal and set in and be good. While we were experimenting, and wood filler wasn't that bad.
It dries fast in its hands.
No, we haven't. That's a great idea. Yeah, it's like plaster. Yeah,
so
that's a
for
great
people
idea.
online, the woman in the audience said try to use gesso, right? Is that
Gesso.
Gesso
Yeah.
as a filler?
Yeah.
And you can get it.
Oh.
Yeah, I've seen them before.
Another one is, we used to use, XTC, smooth on XTC.
Okay.
Just smart epoxy.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
It's great for FDM, but it's definitely not, want to seal it.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, for people online that was smooth on, oh, great.
Oh, cool.
Next.
You can show it on this screen. That was fast.
Is that good? That's awesome. And thank you. We'll take this on.
So can you pick that up anywhere, or is this just you have to purchase it online? How do you get your hands on that?
I think you can get it online. Smooth on tends to be in mold maker school,
Yeah.
so the mold making shop, maybe art shop.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's also a local place in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to jump in here to sort of highlight, this is the part that Chinloo was talking about. And again, if we go back up, oops, this is the finished project, right? So it was actually a locking keepsake box, and these are the little teeth.
So we wanted to curve it so that when the lid came down, it wasn't binding. So it kind of curves in a little bit.
So inside of SolidWorks, what we didn't do, what are you doing there, Art?
Troublemaker.
We got troublemakers in the audience. Okay, so this is inside SolidWorks. What we didn't do ahead of time, which we could have done and been smarter about it, was check underneath the file menu. We have Print 3D, and this is stuff that's just built straight into SolidWorks. What's cool about it is you can go in here and pull from a library of printers. So we have a Cindo, so that's why it's there on my list. But under managed favorites, there's a long list, every brand under the sun. So if you have a specific printer, you can find it here. And then when you make your selections like this, it'll put it inside of an actual preview of the volume of your printer. So you can see, does it fit? Can I fit a couple more? But the other thing that I really like about it is under preview, I can go in here and show the striation lines, and I can dial in what is the thickness of my layer. So for Cindo, the default is 0.2 millimeters. So I'll just type 0.2 mm. It was already at that, but you can see here the black and white stripes. That kind of shows me how many layers I'm going to get used to get this part. And again, seeing these really wide bands of black and white should have been an indicator that I'm going to see this really awful step effect in my 3D print. So had I considered rotating it and printing it straight up, then those curves would have been much better, right? So so that's just,
it'll save you time if you get to preview it before you actually commit time and material, basically.
so something like this would have been a better, or perhaps a better orientation. Again, at the top, you might have had a little bit of something to deal with, a little flat, but that probably would have been a much better result. But again, then you got to deal with, am I having support material in my screw holes? And we'll talk about that.
And time. So orienting it vertically probably would have taken longer versus what we did. So we kind of made a decision, but if this is important and you need to follow those rules, then definitely make those decisions. I think we just answered this.
Yeah.
Does
So,
anyone else want to share other
Yeah,
stories?
is there any other tip that anyone would share with the audience and online as well? Stephanie, is there anything where you've done a great job and you say, oh, I use this technique and it works flawlessly?
I've used an acetone bath.
An acetone bath?
Evaporate in the container and then like sampling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. This is what we did with the card holder. Anyway, we'll show you kind of what we did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Was it PLA, ABS? Do you know?
Yes.
PLA? Okay.
I've used sandpaper stuff, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, good old
Yeah.
elbow grease and sandpaper. Yeah. All right.
To like, invest in sandpaper because we have so much.
Cool. Okay,
This
so
is
now
near you.
we want to talk about, again, are you designing to try and minimize how much material you use? And here's an example. We built this little elephant clip to go on our nephew's backpack to go to school.
Elephant's his favorite animal.
This is me?
I don't remember
Yes.
you, yes.
Okay, so let me jump back into SOLIDWORKS really fast. So one of the other things in that,
That was the video too. I don't know if you want to play it.
that was a video?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
This live action is
Live
better
action
than video.
better. So there's our elephant. We actually, Chinloo modeled this in SOLIDWORKS apps for kids.
Yeah, can we
So-
talk about that?
Yeah,
So there's, if you guys aren't familiar with it, there's a free online app called SOLIDWORKS Apps for Kids. It's swappsforkids.com. And it's completely free. Create an account and you can actually go in and it's all subdivision modeling. So it's like a baby version of X-Shape that we were talking about. So there I was just kind of having fun and pulling together the shape very quickly within like maybe 20 minutes or so, maybe even less than that. And Sal got inspired and he ported it into SolidWorks. So you can bring it in as an STL.
Yeah, so there's a whole separate presentation like right here that we won't go into, but just from a high level, the output from Apps for Kids is an STL, which you would normally print. But SolidWorks can take in STLs, treat it as a solid, and then we slice and dice it, and you can do more stuff. So again, for the SolidWorks users in the group, you can see all the features I added afterwards to build this out. What I want to focus on today in the spirit of 3D printing is if we go back to that print 3D preview, one of the ways to minimize how much material you're using is to think about how do I minimize the supports that I need, right? You could, of course, change your wall thickness and change how much infill and all this other stuff, which is good to consider. But it's also important to maybe think about how do I get rid of the supports or minimize them, because that's technically wasted material. So if I were to print this elephant, you know, how we might think it should be printed, and I go back over here to preview, and I check this box that says show faces that require supports, you can see all this green, hopefully you can see that, all the green underbelly and the face and the neck, everything, all that needs support material up from the bottom. It's gonna be a massive amount of material that's just throwaway. So when you're printing something like this, you can say, hey, is there another way to print it? Now, printing it upside down or sideways isn't really gonna help it. And in fact, it'll make the important surfaces ugly, because when support touches the surface you care about, it's more work to deal with. So for us, what we were gonna do, hold on, was split this thing in half. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide this thing. All right, so I split it in half, and in fact, that gave me the opportunity to build this little recess right here, where we could hook our carabiner. So in fact, if we go back to here, you notice there was another little 3D printed element that we nested in there, and we could then, again, hook it to his backpack. So by splitting this in half, now we do that same file 3D print preview, and we come back to here, and now we choose this face, because I forgot to choose it here. We choose this face as we're, you know, laying it down on the bed. and we go back to preview, and we can sneak up in here, and we say there still needs support. Under those legs, it needs support. That's hard to see, isn't it? And a little bit under the ears, but it's much less. And the other thing that we've accomplished is we've given ourselves a really large flat surface to adhere to that print bed, and we could potentially say, I don't want a raft, right? Because there's enough surface material on there to actually print without a raft. So these are the types of things that you can think about when you're trying to minimize, if it's important to you, to minimize the amount of material that you use. So,
Do you want to play the video?
yeah, we'll do that real fast.
All right.
So how are we doing for time, Stephanie? We are good? Okay, all right. So yeah, so this is the quick run through. So here, again, in SOLIDWORKS, for those interested in how you go from mesh to other solid features, I import it, I turn it into a solid, I scaled it to get it to the right size, because it comes out of apps for kids as whatever. So you can scale it in SOLIDWORKS, and then you go and add all your features. So I cut the recess, cut those tapers, locating holes, because I 3D printed little pins that will help me locate the halves. And in fact, if we fast forward a little bit, here's the other thing I love about 3D printing is you can print a small subset of your design to make sure the parts that have to fit before you print the entire thing. And here we're printing the carabiner. That's the other cool thing. 3D prints, they can have flexibility. You can design in flexibility. So I print it in the outbound position, and then I can kind of bend it into the right location. You can see here, I'm doing that very thing. So I sort of exploit the fact that it's a little bit flexible, and I can bend it right around. And then because it's printed outbound, it has natural sort of compression force to hold it in place.
So for in science for effects like this, like how do you visualize or dimension like the geometry definition of the part? Like how did you come with the reflection and geometry to be able to kind of
I'll repeat the question for the audience. So the question was, when you're designing something like that where there's flex involved, how do you sort of figure out how to design it for that flex? This particular case, it was a lot of intuition and a little bit of trial. I knew I had to be at least outbound of that hook. I didn't assume I needed to be a mile away, so I just went a little bit away. And then I sort of experimented. It took me a couple prints to actually, I don't think I have them here.
We don't have
A
extra.
couple prints to change the thickness of that, to change the spacing of the curves. The unfortunate thing, I will point out, SOLIDWORKS for makers doesn't have simulation in it. If I had proper SOLIDWORKS, I would absolutely have done a little bit of simulation to sort of see the differences, but a quick experiment is what I did. To just go for the feel there. Yep. Okay.
there reflects what I've recently learned is like if you want to have like a loopy, I think there's some like print settings where you can actually put it in a loop so that it does it in the slicer setting. So it has that.
Oh, cool.
It's not inbuilt.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Upside down. Ah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm making one just like Manny said next
Oh,
time,
repeat
and I'm
it.
gonna make, okay, so Manny suggested that you could flatten the head part of the elephant,
The back.
the back, like, yeah, and then basically print it upside down with the legs sticking up and you don't need, but I'm just geeking out because then we can like do that and then print a special hat and a special little like little
So then cover up
saddle. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's elephant 2.0.
Elephant soup. Wait. Yeah.
We're gonna
coming
try
to-
that.
Coming to a holiday near you.
Yeah, Christmas hat. And then it's a good idea.
So post-processing, Chinloo.
All right, okay. So let me talk a bit about that. So as Sal pointed out, he was able to minimize, but now we know a better way to reduce the structure, the support structure. And without all that scaffolding, when we did have it, it was always a struggle to have to go back sand. So we had files, you mentioned all the different sanding grits. So we worked a lot with that. So it's really important for us to really minimize that since we're trying to turn these things out every week as an episode. So one of the things you can do here to really decide where you need support or not is here in this example, we have this that we can hand out. is a little card holder we designed, and there's a little bunny rabbit. You see there's a few overhangs using draft analysis in X design and X shape. So these are our cloud products. You can actually see, you can hone in on the acceptable angle that you want to test out, and you can actually see the offending surfaces. You can go in and adjust accordingly so you can reduce that angle and you won't need the support there. So that's a quick way to kind of sanity check, especially when those are areas where it's not critical to maintain a certain angle, having that part. So this draft analysis feature is in both in SOLIDWORKS, but the cloud products that we mentioned before that's can run online. I love you, Milo. Thank you for coming over. You're like my #1 fan. You can access it both in X-Shape, which is that subdivision modeling software that we were talking about, as well as X Design, which is like a parametric cloud-based software. Was there more to talk about this? We can hand this out so people can see.
Yeah, I just passed that around.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last thing on what orientation speed. If you're trying to print something really fast, there's a couple ways to do it. It's not always going to be in your favor to do it, but there's a couple ways to do it. The picture is actually showing telling your printer to move really fast. So how many millimeters per second is that thing whipping around? And you can see in this picture, I don't remember which printer it came off of, but this one, the faster you go, it's much.
This is a picture I found online, so we didn't make this.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But it does illustrate similar things we've seen before in our print. So if we go too fast, you can see some of that buckling or like spaghettiing. I don't know what the term is.
Yeah.
You guys probably know the proper terms.
That's the official term.
Spaghetti.
Yeah. So, but the other things, of course, your layer thickness is going to be a big contributor, right? If you make your layers extremely thin, then you're going to end up with more time to print.
Right.
Same thing with infill. If you want to print it completely solid versus 20% infill, it's going to have a big difference on the amount of time it takes. But generally speaking, I think this is true for all types of printing, whether it's SLA or FDM or whatever. The taller your object is, the longer it's going to take. So you can print one layer. If you can lay it down flat, it's going to print much faster than if you're raising it quite tall. Because the taller it gets, those layers really start to add up. So that's sort of the quick thing. I wanted to, again, poll the group. Are there other things that when you're designing and thinking about 3D printing that you ask yourself, or you try and keep in mind when you're trying to 3D print?
There is one. Sometimes I've encountered situations where I can come up with this amazing orientation where we have a small contact point just enough to hold it on the plate. But it depends on how high it is. Because the higher it is, get leverage at the top, you can slide something to tip over. So I've learned to compensate as things go higher, it reduces the extrusion speed or the travel speed. And I've also been doing things like changing the temperature as it goes up, and increasing the build temperature as I get farther from the build plate. It expands the bottom and extension, making it fall off. Those are things, changing those settings as you enter these gaps. Not setting the volume in most software,
Right.
so I have to literally manually do it how it works.
Manually, so I'm going to repeat it, but manually do it in, like you're editing the G code or on the machine? Okay.
Like based on my
Okay, so a gentleman in the audience said a couple really great things. He said that if he has really tall and slender parts, he will actually go and slow the 3D printer down as the print is getting taller so that it's not imparting too many forces to make that thing tip over. The other point was he would alter the temperature to make sure that it's actually adhering more strongly as it gets taller. And those are things he's tweaking on the fly, which is really cool. It's beyond me, but you watch your print for hours? Do you watch your print for hours?
I'm watching TV.
No, I'm giving you a hard time. Yeah. Yeah.
He has
No,
a
that's-
webcam on it.
That's
With
great.
an alarm
Yeah,
on his
he
watch.
gets alerts every hour.
That's great.
No, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So anything online, Stephanie? No, okay.
Oh,
So
sorry,
here,
got a comment.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Sindo printer uses the same exact material for supports and for the final product. Yeah, so, but are you using a printer that has dual material?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
What I've seen, it's been pretty good.
Okay. All right.
That's
Yeah.
a cool idea.
So yeah.
Okay.
So for the people online again, one gentleman said he was experimenting with mixing PETG with PLA, right? PETG as a support material because it doesn't stick to the PLA. That's a really cool tip. This gentleman was commenting that you were using
Water soluble.
yeah, water soluble support material in conjunction with PVA.
But
Yeah,
you're saying
but-
with nylon, it becomes a, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
okay. So, and then there was a concern with the water soluble content clogging up your head and making it hard to clean. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because they stick together. Okay, so the remnants on the nozzle can cause, yeah, when you switch out the material. Yep.
Yep.
How do you do?
You want to
So-
repeat that?
I'll do my best. So, Manny asked the question of how do you deal with the temperature differences between the PETG and the PLA, and then I didn't get your response. Okay, so the slicer is managing that. What software and slicer are you using? Orca. All right, Prusa made of bamboo, made of Orca. Got it. All right, so here's another thing that we kind of learned.
This is not as sophisticated as all of the tips you just
Yeah,
said, but
this is comic relief. How do you actually remove the print from the print bed? So Cindo has a flexible print bed, and more often than not, I can flex the bed and get it either to pop off completely or to get it so I can get my spatula under it on my. But sometimes I just can't get it off. So wait for it. This is the best part. Ready? Wait. Here it is. Wait. And I finally get it off.
I
And
did.
then I go across the. What?
Oh.
I got a tip for you. Hold on.
I was gonna share his tip
Is
first.
that your tip? Yeah. Yes. Oh, it's not out of tamper. Okay. Yeah.
So all the blade down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it back on and use that.
Easy peasy. All right. So dull the edge of a razor blade, and ground the corner. So yeah. So you're not damaging your build plate, and that'll come right
But
under.
it's thinner than that spatula.
That's great because then you don't have to do this. But yeah, if your model does allow for it, you could also chamfer that bottom edge so you at least have something to get under.
To bite,
Um,
yeah.
Great tips there. All right. So yeah, in general, I know again we love designing all kinds of things, but we certainly love to work with 3D printing. We showed you in the beginning that it's great for. Is that a video?
I don't know what it is, so I'm playing it.
Play it.
Just keep talking.
It's of course great for prototyping your ideas, right? And I think that's that was the why it
It's the
was
same
invented. But I also like this idea that you can fine tune the fit. I talked about this earlier. Print a subset of it, fine tune the print. I have this another example here. And again, I'll pass it around. Hopefully this is good. I created this little dovetail sliding mechanism. Bless you. And again, it was meant to be part of this bigger contraption. And I'll show you that in a second. But instead of printing the entire thing just to figure out what offsets I should have on my dovetails, I printed a couple of samples, and this one was a little too tight for my taste. So that's a great way of just cut away your CAD model and get rid of most of it. And then print a couple real quick subsets to fine tune those fits. I love that. And then
Yeah, and let me just finish off the rest of the bullet list. basically, it's just, you guys all know this, most of you guys are 3D printers. They do make beautiful parts. So if you design it well and it comes out the way you want, it is the thing. You don't have to use it to make anything else. That is your deliverable. And because of that, it just makes us feel like we could do anything. Like you can basically, you don't have to worry about traditional molding process, ways that you can properly eject it from a mold. You can basically design whatever you want and it will work. So, for example, no, wrong thing. What I have in my hand is actually something, one of our projects, which was, it early in the year, Chinese New Year, or sorry, Lunar New Year. And we wanted to make, we always give money out. We have lots of nieces and kids and everyone. So instead of the traditional red pockets envelopes, we decided to make 3D printed gifts. And we were giving out a lot of gift cards. So we thought we would do these little neat things. So I went into X-Shape and started modeling. And what was great about 3D printing is I could actually, you guys know, you could actually design the hinge mechanism right into it and print it all at the same time. These little things can actually, the body moves, so it's like a little locking mechanism. So I'll pass this around. It allows you to basically push the card in, lock it its side, and then the card doesn't fall out anymore.
Yeah, I shook too hard.
I shook it too hard. You can do that, take two. But it's not supposed to.
You want to pass that and then comment
Yeah.
on this other video?
So here you go. Yeah, so, and the other thing is we were experimenting with just the finish. So you can see one has like the Mod Podge treatment and one doesn't. And I did low poly the whole thing. So what I'm doing here too, it was like a one-day build. I was having fun with X-Shape and I was just making a little hippopotamus. And there was no way, as you see this being very quickly modeled, that you could get this out of any kind of mold, or because there's so many overhangs, undercuts, and whatnot. Of course, 3D printing was great, and there was absolutely no support structures necessary. So it really worked out well. The way I went from CAD modeling straight into the product, and it turned out to be a really nice chopstick holder, paintbrush holder, whatever you like. But yeah, so this is to illustrate that, you know, if you let your creativity go, just like you can with 3D printing, you can make anything you want. So that was another project we worked on.
Yeah,
You
and
want
I
to talk
think,
about this?
yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about, I guess I've become addicted to trying to design things that don't use any supports. Like, I don't know, it's like a new fun challenge. So I enjoy doing that, but sometimes you also absolutely need it to not have supports. And I wanted to kind of talk to that for a second. I think I have an example here.
Can I set the stage while you find the file?
Yeah.
So what he's showing you is we're experimenting with aquaponics and gardening. We're huge, like, especially I think during COVID.
I forget to run the video.
Yeah, during COVID, it was a big deal. And we were stuck in the house and we wanted to actually experiment with this. So we designed some siphons and caging around the siphon to hold the media back. But you can see some of this. And as Sal pointed out, because there's like a snorkel that comes off of it to break the siphon, that's that critical area where you really don't want any support structure and you don't want to fish in there to remove anything. So you really have to design intelligently to remove that necessity.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me about it. So absolutely, because there's a path of water here, and it's impossible for me to extract support material, I really have to think.
Except for the water soluble thing, but we didn't do that.
Yeah, we don't have that. It's really important to sort of think about, am I printing this thing right side up or upside down? Do I have all my angles right so that my printer will not ask for supports? So here's another example. You know, this is another sneak peek of a future episode. So we're designing a watering can, right? And so this is sort of the nozzle of the watering can. And the path here, although you could argue you can kind of get down there and scratch out some stuff, I want that to be perfectly smooth. So what I do in SolidWorks is start, in this case, with the path of this is the water volume, or at least the path of the water. That's what's important. So I'm going to start designing that. And then everything from that will be offsets and other features, and that will be my hollow. And then when I'm designing that, I keep in mind what I know about my printer and how I'm going to do this. And you know, this is a sweep or a loft. I think it's a loft, but basically I'm starting from one shape, I'm going down a path, ending up in a circle. And this simple sketch is going to let me control sort of whether or not I hit that range of the angle where I need support. So this 25 degree is actually not important, right? This is just some weird angle. What I really want to know is here. I'm going to draw a line that comes off tangent to there. Oh, come on. My zoom control. Oh. What I really care about is the angle between right there. All right, so we're going to make this a driven dimension, because at the very tip here, this is where I'm going to have my material, and it's going to be out in the air. And if I make that angle too much, depending on your printer, is it 45 degrees? Is it 60 degrees? I don't know. But for your printer, you're going to want to stay in that range. And let's say for my printer, it's 45 degrees, and I'm going to need support out there. So in SOLIDWORKS, you may be aware, you can take certain dimensions and make them driving. Make this one driven. That underdefines my sketch, and turn this one and make it driving. And now I can say, well, I want that to be 45 degrees, all right? And that'll update my sketch. And now I'm in complete control of the water path, and then of course, hey buddy, of the final result. So that's just something I wanted to point out, that when you're designing, again, sometimes it's just fun to sort of figure out if you can design without supports, and sometimes you absolutely need it. And some of the ways that we do that is by just paying attention to what's important. It's just like another design criteria or a constraint.
I think
So,
Milo's your
hold on,
support
yeah.
feature.
I'm sorry. I hope you don't get seasick. What you haven't been able to see.
Oh,
This guy, is he on camera? Okay, so he's been hanging out. For those of you online, I broke everything.
go ahead, Milo.
Oh, I'm breaking everything. Oh, Stephanie. All right, I tightened it. She's got it. Okay. So that's what you're missing in New York City tonight, Brooklyn.
Yeah, can you
Okay.
read?
All right,
It's
I
8
think
o'clock.
we're
You're
at the
you're
end.
talking too much,
Oh.
Sal.
I don't talk too much.
Okay, so last 2 slides, but this is just for you, for those of you who want to get involved. There are a few communities in the Dassault system sphere of maker stuff. So if you are interested in the maker offering, you can, these are all free. You just have to make a free account. You can learn about what's there. But on our channel, there's actually always a link to a 20% off of the product if you want to get it. So if you go to the next,
Well,
did you guys say that?
Yeah, but more importantly,
Yes.
every time we do a project, we post the CAD files to
Into this community.
it's
So yeah,
this/that. So if you find us on YouTube, you can find the links to that. And again, you can download. We put them up there in STL, STEP, as well as native SolidWorks. So you can grab those as you need it. And again, this is sort of where we're at on the socials.
yeah. So if you guys want to check out the episodes we have or anything like that, we are on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. But mainly YouTube has all the long episodes. So a lot of the videos you guys saw is all on that. So if you want to slow down and be like, oh, they forgot this, and let us know, that'll be great. Love to get feedback, and we love this stuff. So any question or anything for us? Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Did anyone have a question? I think you raised your hand. Did you have a question?
3D scanning. So
One of our episodes we did.
Yeah.
We actually 3D scanned a compound miter saw
thanks to I'm pointing at you.
because our
So Art in the back of the room, he told us about a program called PolyCam.
Oh yeah.
And
So we use PolyCam.
We tried it out, brother. And
And
we use it. We use it to scan, one of the tools in our workshop, so that we could then design the workbench to fit it perfectly.
Yeah, we basically designed this shield that perfectly, like in the curvature, catch all of the dust from the compact miter saw.
But we have yet to, if you were going to have we scanned in a 3D printer, we have yet to do that.
Yeah, we have not done the 3D print from scanning. Is that your original question?
of
That's the
person.
next thing we're trying to do.
Yeah, well, she did use Polycam to scan me.
I didn't
and
do so well.
My head was a little too shiny,
Yeah, his
so it was all
head
like,
was like flat.
I don't know why it was so shiny.
Spray it was, that's a good idea. I should spray
Yeah.
it. So the idea is we wanted to scan his face and then actually create like a special
Wearable, yeah.
wearable
That's
that
the
would
safer,
protect
yeah.
him during woodworking. But
Baby powder, yeah. Maybe shower, yeah.
that too. Sand it down.
All right, any other things online, Stephanie, that we should? All right.
Great.
Great, cool. All right. All right.
Cool. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right. Oh yeah, Stephanie's got prizes and things, and don't leave online. There's a prize for you too. No, Stephanie. Stephanie.
I think I'll.
Okay, so we have some giveaways here. So I'm just gonna invite Sal to give or who has a microphone? Or Chinloo,
Yes.
would you come over? Because I need you to give a question to the audience, and I'll just give this to whoever answers the first. So, no, come over. Microphone. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a phone holder, car mount.
Yes.
So
What do I have to do?
yeah, just ask a question for the
Oh my God, I
audience.
have to come up with a question.
Good question.
I'm blanking. Sorry.
What was the animal that Chinloo modeled in X shape?
I modeled either of the animals.
Somebody online.
There you go.
There we go. Christina, do you want another question? Do you want a question for the audience?
Me?
Yeah. So to everyone who's in the audience online, I'll send a gift card to whoever has this answer. So Christina will develop a question and I'll just send it over to whoever types in first the answer.
Whew. Okay, let me think. What's a typical overhang angle for FDM printing?
No, the online, that one's online. Yeah, this question is gonna be for the online gift prize. 25?
Keep coming. Keep coming. Closest without going over.
Oh, no one's, another question?
What was the answer?
So we normally do like 55 or 60. We push it a little bit, but 45 is very safe. But I feel like the slicers will normally recommend just a little, like push it a little bit. So somewhere between 45 and 60 is like where.
Okay, perfect. So I'll send, I have all of the emails, so I'll just send it right over. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. I need to switch to my presentation because I have a few community thanks that I need to give. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank our presenters. I'm gonna give them a certificate of participation as soon as we wrap up, so keep that posted. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience, and Makelab, thank you so much for hosting. This has been a wonderful event. And then I do have to give a big shout out to our collaborations for media, Fat Cat Fab Lab, and the Women in 3D Printing New York chapter. The Women in 3D Printing is a local network community for events of women in the industry. They're looking for sponsorships, so if you're nice enough to and kind enough to sponsor, they'll love to be there. And if you just want to join and learn more about 3D printing at the net, that's fantastic. Fat Cat Fab Lab is a volunteer-run makerspace in West Village. And it's open for the public, so you can join. They have access to a whole bunch of lathes and tools and 3D printers that you can use, and they also have a SOLIDWORKS license. And big thanks and shout outs to the other user groups, SOLIDWORKS User Group Network, of course, Tech Valley SOLIDWORKS User Group, the Hidalgo SOLIDWORKS User Group, and Conswag for the communications for this event. So with that, I'm going to wrap up, and thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.